Okay, we have all been there, right? You're right at the finish line of a sale, everything feels like it's going perfectly, and then bam, you hit the wall. The price objection. Well, in this explainer, we're going to break down why that moment isn't actually the problem and how the deal was probably lost long before you ever even talked about money.
Just picture it. You know the feeling. You're feeling confident, you know your product inside and out, you've got your whole presentation polished to a shine, you're building rapport, laughing, everything seems to be going absolutely perfectly.
And there it is, the phrase that just stops everything cold. The wall goes up, the whole mood in the room shifts, and you can literally feel the deal slipping right through your fingers. So what do? You start defending the price, explaining all the features again, but honestly, it's already too late.
But here's the crazy part, the big twist. The fatal mistake, it wasn't made when you reveal the price. No way. It happened way earlier. It probably happened 20 minutes before, when you kind of rushed through the discovery phase. Or maybe you just failed to truly understand what mattered to the person sitting right across from you.
So this brings us to our first really crucial idea. We have to completely reframe how we think about these price objections. They aren't the real problem. They're just a symptom, a sign of a much deeper issue that started way back at the beginning of the conversation.
Let this one sink in for a second, because it's everything. A price objection usually isn't a statement about their bank account. It's a statement about the value you failed to build. They're basically telling you, hey, there's a gap between the price you just told me and the value I'm seeing. And our job? It's to close that gap.
So how do we do that? How do we close that gap? Well, it all starts by adopting what we call a value-first mindset. And this means you have to fundamentally shift our entire approach. You stop defending a cost, and you start building the case for an investment in a solution that they desperately want and need. Just look at the difference here. On the left, you've got the old way, price-first thinking. It's a defensive game, right? It's all about features and trying to logically justify the cost. But on the right, the value-first approach is proactive. You lead with the emotion behind their real problems, their pain points. And only then do you use logic to reinforce the decision that they already want to make emotionally. And this is so, so important. Every single question you ask, every little note you take, is either building momentum toward a yes or it's building resistance. Closing isn't some high-pressure tactic you pull out in the last 5 minutes. It's just the natural, easy outcome of a conversation where you've successfully built value from the very start. All right, so that's the philosophy behind it. But how do we actually put this into practice? I mean, what does it look like? Well, we need a toolkit for discovery, a structured way to uncover what a customer really cares about so we can tailor our entire presentation specifically to them. And this framework right here is the discovery stack. These are the 6 key areas you have to understand before you ever even think about your solution. Now, don't think of it like a checklist to just run through. It's more of a guide for a natural conversation. You have to understand their core pain, for sure, but also their timeline, who makes the final call, and this is a big one. What does a win even look like for them? If you don't know that, you've got no chance of building real value. And here's a perfect real-world example of what happens when you skip this. A remodeler lost a $60,000 kitchen deal because he spent 20 minutes just geeking out about dovetail joints and fancy cabinet construction. He was selling what he found impressive, not what the customer actually cared about. But check this out. Another salesperson, same area, closed an even bigger deal, $85,000. Why? Because her very first question was, so what's the biggest frustration you have with your kitchen right now? The answer? It was always too crowded. So every single feature she presented was framed as a solution to that specific problem. She didn't sell a kitchen, she sold family harmony. Now that is the power of good discovery. Okay, so you've done your discovery, you've built this amazing case based on what they value. You can't just drop the price in their lap. You have to create an explicit, obvious bridge between all the value you just built and the price you're about to present. And this is the value to price bridge. It's a super simple 3-step formula. First, you summarize their main priorities right back to them. This shows you were listening. Second, you connect your solution directly to each of those priorities. And only then, as the very last step, do you introduce the price as the necessary investment to get the thing they just told you they wanted. And here's exactly what that can sound like. See how you're framing the price? It's not a cost anymore. It's a choice between 2 different outcomes, the one they want and the one they're desperately trying to avoid. The price just becomes the logical cost of getting their desired result. It's not a surprise, it's an expected natural part of the solution. But, what if you do all this and you still get an objection? The key is to see it not as a rejection, but as a request for more information. An objection just means they're a little confused, not that they're not convinced. It's a huge opportunity, not a dead end. When that happens, you just follow this four-step process. The goal is never to argue. First, you clarify. What do they really mean by that? Then you isolate the single biggest concern. Is it really the total price, or is it the payment terms? Next, you reconnect your solution back to the value they already told you was important. And finally, you confirm that you've totally addressed their concern. It's a conversation, not a conflict. And a really powerful technique to use through this entire process is something called the yes ladder. All you're doing is getting small agreements along the way. Little questions about the problem, the solution, the priorities. See, each yes is a tiny commitment that builds momentum. So by the time you ask for the final sale, it's just the next logical yes in a whole series of them. Ultimately, it all just comes back to this one simple principle: value first, price last. If you haven't built enough value, then seriously, no price is ever going to sound right. But if you have, if you really connected your solution to their deepest needs, then almost any reasonable price is going to feel completely justified. So I'll leave you with this one question to think about for your own sales process. When you state your price, what is your customer actually hearing? Are they hearing an obstacle, an expense they have to somehow get over? Or are they seeing a clear, logical investment that gets them the exact outcome they told you they wanted? Because the answer to that question will almost always determine whether you win or lose the deal.